and to seamlessly be able to integrate these tasks is something that is really good and commendable. Right about now, ladies and gentlemen, we would like to usher you straight into the panel discussion so that we can listen from the experts on strengthening climate resilience and inclusive water utility systems, advancing environmental sustainability for universal access. This particular panel session will be moderated by a man who has immense experience in the water and rural subsector. He's a former commissioner and now doing the rounds in the private sector where his expertise, experience is highly coveted. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me welcome Engineer Joseph O. Eyatu. Engineer Joseph O. Eyatu, thank you for joining us. He will call on the panelists who will join him, and then the panel session will begin in earnest. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Yeah. And I would like also to put my voice across to our organizers. I think they've done a wonderful job. Can we still give them a big applause? To put this up 3 days and we are still here, I think it's wonderful. One of the things I've learned since I stopped having a job from 8 to 5 is simplicity. So they've been asking for my CV. I told them, say 2 words. I'm a wash expert, retired, in the private sector. Simple life is easy when you retire. But I also want to avoid a lot of protocol. I want to recognize seniors, those guys who have retired, those people, and they have not been recognized since I came here. Can I request, if you have retired from 8 to 5, please stand up and these members clap for you. We are not very many. Christopher is still on 8 to 5. Wow, thank you very much. Unfortunately, the session we have is very close to the last session because all of us have been here from Monday. It has been very exciting. I just want to share with you, because what we are talking about here is now relating WASH, regulation, and climate change. I'm not going to read the long topic. It's WASH, regulation, and climate change. Isn't that a good teaching, eh? So just keep those in mind. So there's a gentleman who's been talking about climate change a lot. He's called Al Gore. All people know him. He said, the earth has a rising fever. We are what is wrong, and we must make it right. So all of you are what is wrong, so we must make it right. So first panelists, I'll start with big is big. I'll start with first person to come on board is Engineer Dr. Sandra Muhirirwe. May I request that she walks in slowly? PhD person doesn't rush. Eh? She's a civil engineer with more than 14 years of experience, spanning academia, research, professional practice. She's also a successful multi-stakeholder programmer, and she's an advisor to GIZ. I'll summarize. She holds a PhD in engineering science and has MSc in water resources engineering, both from KU Leuven, Belgium. Also has a bachelor's degree civil and building from Kiambogo University. She is a registered professional engineer in Uganda. Please welcome her. Thank you very much. Thank you for accepting. Next, Engineer Dr. Isa Kabenge. Please kindly march elegantly this side. Dr. Kabenge and his PhD in agriculture and biological systems engineering from Nebraska Lincoln in USA. He also has a master's in water and waste engineering from University of Pretoria, South Africa, and a BSc in agricultural engineering from MUK. His PhD concentrated on research on the new systems that you people read about, GIS, a lot of AI, don't know what you know. You all know about AI now. You have been forced to know about it. AI is a very big intruder, and he has facilitated a lot of programs. He's very rich in academia. He has research interests in biological systems, environmental protection. That's why we thought he's useful here, and emerging technologies. He has also supervised numerous undergraduate and graduate programs. He's a publisher and author. He's a lead for Hilton Africa water quality testing program, and a chair of the Department of Agriculture and Biosystems Engineering. That is Dr. Kabenge for you. Please welcome him. Next on our list, the panel is lost along, so I'll be more brief because you know what it means. Engineer Wilberforce Kimezere, please come forward. He's a specialist working with UNICEF for the last 20 years. That's not a short experience. He's a civil engineer with over 30 years experience in humanitarian, transition and development settings in the field of water and sanitation. And I was privileged to work with him many times. He's very, very articulate and knows what he's talking about. Before joining UNICEF, he worked with the government, Rural Water Project, RUWASA, and he has also worked with numerous NGOs. He has a bachelor's in civil engineering from University of Dar es Salaam, postgraduate diploma in water and waste engineering in Loughborough University. He is also a member of the Uganda Institution of Professional Engineers. Please welcome Engineer Wilberforce. Next is Engineer Bujure Moses Godfrey. Please give him some energy. Give him some energy. This is towards the end. We need to give people energy. He's a civil engineer with 18 years progressive experience in planning, delivery and management of water supply and sanitation services. When you're talking about utilities, management is in the center, and that's why we want to hear from Bujure, Engineer Bujure here. He has a bachelor's in civil engineering, a master's of science in water and sanitation, postgraduate diploma in management. He's thinking about other things also. He has served as a utility manager for 3 of the country's regional umbrellas. You know, we have 6. I don't know whether they've increased. He serves as a principal engineer at the Ministry of Water and Environment, and also is a coordinator for umbrella utilities. So anything you talk about 62%, 98%, whatever, he knows. Please welcome Moses Bujure here. Finally, you can't talk about climate change without having Mohamed Kasangazi Semambo in the picture. May I invite him to come forward? Semambo Mohamed is a Ugandan environmentalist and a climate change scientist. He holds a master's in climate change and disaster management and has a postgraduate diploma in desert and semi-arid biodiversity. His expertise, I want to repeat, in adaptation and mitigation. So anything to do with the climate change adaptation and mitigation is there. And he has also been key in our carbon projects, and he has recently developed regulations which we are now implementing. If you have not seen it, please get him interested. He's currently working in the Ministry of Water and Environment as Assistant Commissioner for Climate Change, in charge of mitigation adaptation. So he's the right expert. Please welcome Mr. Semambo. I've summarized these last ones because I have some person who's monitoring me in front and is really harassing me. Kindly go slow, this guy is old. So you're all welcome. We have here 5 experts, and I told you make the thing simple: regulation, climate change, and WASH. And make sure these people in front of you are happy. I'm just going to share with you a general question. After COP30, and I don't know how many of you attended, I know you came up with decisions, resolutions, roadmaps, but now we're planning for COP31 in 2026. I'm told it's going to be in Turkey, unless you have changed now. You are the experts, you tell us. What should we as Ugandans go with to ensure that we show that in WASH services, we ensure inclusive, climate resilient? Somebody was talking about gender here, but it has to be both gender sensitive and inclusive. Sandra, unfortunately, you're outnumbered. So please, I request you start. We'll try to be brief.
Okay, since I'm outnumbered and I have to represent the largest number of people here, I think one of the most important things is to be deliberate in terms of our financing and allocation as a country, but also in terms of beyond the financing, is that to take it a little bit lower and look into our policies that already we have advanced in terms of our systems, our policies within climate change and monitoring, but can we have that systems start to speak to each other? Today we are speaking utility, we are speaking wash services, but when does the, for instance, the information that Dr. Kallis presented in the morning about droughts and floods start to speak to the utilities? That they start to abstract and provide a service in a regulated manner, that the two systems are integrated, to look into that we have a climate risk dashboard being with the wash systems, that the two are speaking to one another. So just to allow other speakers have something else to say.
Thank you very much. Can I hear from Engineer Dr. Issa?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you, colleagues, for joining us on this panel. Thank you, audience, for coming in. If you think about how we report our data, it is in a delayed format. I think as a country, we need to step into the real-time format of reporting data. We need to put into systems that can give us what is happening on the ground right there, so that the decisions are made not in a delayed format. So we need to get into a place where we have data collected, reported into real time, feeding into the center so that people can make quick decisions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Engineer Wilberforce Chimezere.
Yeah, I think what should be done looking at COP31 is government to allocate a dedicated, improved budget for inclusive, climate resilient water services. Like when we look at the departments within the Ministry of Water and Environment, I think each of the departments should have a budget line which looks at climate resilient water services.
Engineer Bujure.
I think we need to walk the talk. We need to contribute to the forest cover of the country. We need to protect our wetlands, and we also need to reduce on the emission by adopting environmental user-friendly technologies like solar pumping, and then with that we will have contributed to reduction on the emission.
Okay. I think, Mohammed, you are the one who's supposed to write this down. You have summarized them. So, because I hope the draft paper is ready for COP31. Kindly give us your quick thoughts on that.
Moderator, just to mention that I'm happy to be here, but the paper is not yet out for COP31. We have to agree to it as a country to see what we take. But I think, responding to the question that you have posed, I think my message would be very simple, is that moving towards COP31, and what do we take there when it comes to the wash services, is demonstrating our commitment. And how do we demonstrate the commitment? The commitment is demonstrated in the National Climate Change Action Plans, which is the NDC, the National Determined Contributions. And I'm happy to say that a lot has been done in the wash sector. The vulnerability has been assessed in certain areas, and has informed what we call our wash now. So it is just a matter of prioritizing what we want to see coming from the washing up into our National Climate Change Action Plan, which is the NDC. That it will demonstrate the country's change. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I think you've done a good summary. So it's really shows that we have room for all of you to enrich that paper and make sure we go and get benefits, because these decisions are so many. Now let's go to the specifics. Dr. Sandra Cecilia Muhirirwe, you are working for GIZ as a key player. And you know, GIZ worked with us so many years ago to reform the urban sector. And you have also been involved a lot as GIZ, especially in vocational training. So my issue here is, we have this catchment-based planning, which you have also really helped us to address. How can you help us link with other development partners? The list I see here is very long, and there are others not on that list, to ensure that our investment plans, which are supported by them and by us, integrate all issues related with catchment-based planning in next year and in the future. And also, can you convince them to join a lot to support the regulation? Because I don't want us to lose regulation. Regulation is why we are here today. We must make sure that in whatever we do, it must be in a regulated environment, we collect the right data, and we move with the information that's reliable.
Thank you. When you speak of support to regulation, and the support starts now for us being present as GIZ, because we find that regulation is important to us in what we do in day-to-day. But also as GIZ, we normally set up in setting benchmarks on how things should be done in terms of policy, in terms of regulation. And you'll find that, for instance, in our recent refugee program, where we are supporting rehabilitation of water supply systems, but also taking it further to look into catchment protection and how can you have implementation of nature-based solutions. And the interventions we are proposing are actually learnings that we have across Africa in the different interventions that people are able to learn from one another, but also using the local workforce that is available. But I want to also speak into our regional support within the Africa Investment Program, where in the past years we did develop guidelines on climate resilience water investment programs, on how different countries can develop their investment programs to be able to close that gap in financing. In the next years, we are taking that a little lower and saying previously we did for the entire Africa. And this is where the different member states, the ministers sit together to agree on how financing should be, and that was clear to include climate resilience. And in the next years, Uganda is one among the 7 countries that will benefit from that, and that brings together the different stakeholders. Right now, I think next year the work should be able to start, but it's looking into that as Uganda, what investment do we need, and how do we cater for climate resilience, and these guidelines must be followed. The work, of course, is with support with the World Bank and other agencies, and we normally bring in all other players. And as development partners, we meet and agree on how to invest and how to prioritize, and with the support of government. And time again, we do have government with us in our meetings, and we shall continue to say that this is well anchored, and we're able to synergize that. Should one agency be having an intervention, it's still speaking into issues of climate resilience, issues of building the capacity of the countries to understand what it means to have climate resilience investment, but also in terms of personnel, but also in terms of systems. You know, every time we say that GIZ focuses on capacity building, everyone thinks, oh, workshops. No. We speak of systems, we speak of processes and policies that require governments to do their roles in terms of ensuring sustainability of our resources. I think I can pause it there for now.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for the work you're doing. But I think that makes me just go straight to Engineer Wilberforce Chimezere. You talked about refugees, and I know UNICEF and yourselves have been really doing a lot of work in the refugee cycle. So those two link closely. And on top of that, you have also been doing a lot of WASH infrastructure in schools and health facilities. Now, I have 2 questions for you. The first one is, these refugees, the number is always increasing. They're not going back. They are squeezing us. Sorry, please don't quote me that I'm threatening refugees. But the number is some host communities, there are more refugees than actually the hosts in districts. Now the issue is, should we really be thinking about humanitarian things here, or we just say, these people have come and we plan for them forever? That's the first question I'm going to ask you to tell us, because you have been in the deep. And then the second one on the schools. You know, schools, the last number, I don't know the recent statistics because I'm still waiting for the final report. It was 15 million learners which were in schools. And you have been keen that how do you, or how have you integrated these resilient facilities to ensure that our children, especially the girl child, who go through sometimes 3-4 days in difficult times, and they need to be catered for with climate resilient facilities. What is UNICEF doing on this direction? Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. It is not only UNICEF doing this, but it is all of us as stakeholders. Government, that is the Ministry of Water and Environment, and also at the district level. The first thing we have been doing is to integrate the refugee response plan with government programs like NDP4 and also district-based plans. So right now, in some instances, we have one plan between the refugee program and also the hosting districts. I think like Kamwenge, we are moving closer to that, but other refugee hosting districts, we are still very far from that. But our target is that in the next 2-3 years, we should have one district-based plan for all refugee hosting districts. The other one is strengthening government institutions to take over ownership. We are looking at the district, local government. We are looking at the umbrella. I think the previous presentation brought out that, where the umbrella has been provided with adequate capacity to manage water and sanitation systems, though there are still gaps. So that is another area we are looking at. The other area, and that is the reason why we are here, is to create a strong regulatory framework that empowers users and holds providers of services accountable, so that at the end of the day, we have sustainable water and sanitation systems. Going to the next question, where we have provided facilities in institutions. At the global level, UNICEF and the Global Water Partnership developed what we call Climate Resilience Development Framework, which guides us in terms of strengthening systems and facilities so that the services which are provided are sustainable. And that one brings us in the development of the climate rationale. And this, like climate rationale, has technical specifics, which we have not done much. The first one is to develop standardized tools to conduct child-centered climate risk assessments and identify specific threats. When we look at threats, we look at the floods and drought, so that at the end of the day we can develop climate resilience infrastructure. We can also develop clear guidance for the development of the climate rationale, which also guides the development of the National Adaptation Plan, and also developing technical briefs and standard designs for climate resilience works infrastructure in these institutions. These are some of the many areas we can work on together with the Ministry of Water and Environment.
Thank you very much. I think that's a mouthful. Now, Professor, Doctor, Engineer Kabenge. I looked at a nice report, the water utility report, and it talked about a drop in water quality. I remember somebody who presented here was saying it's a small drop. But in my heart I was saying, small drop, if you're talking about 6 points, how many people went to hospital with that small drop? I think that's what we're looking at. So now we're going to talk about water quality in relation to our regulation. You realize water quality is the leading cause of complaints, especially by consumers. Do you think our current safety planning and monitoring systems are adequate? You're a professor, you really need to guide us here, especially in monitoring these key parameters. And also you're leading a very, very powerful foundation, Conrad Hilton Foundation, which we really appreciate what we've done with them. Do you think we can do something to support regulation in your work?
Thank you very much. I have to say our current water safety planning is really sound. If you look at where we are, given the data that we are having. However, without strengthening, the current climate pressures render it inadequate, which means we do not have to overhaul the current safety planning. However, we need to strategically adapt it. We need to look at it digitally, we need to look at it operationally, we need to look at it socially as well. And all these, when you look at the previous presenters, they've been talking about it. We need to go into how do we get the information quicker out there so that people can make decisions correctly? How do we ensure that we link up the information we are getting from the field to the decision makers? How do we ensure that the data that we are collecting is very reliable when we get into that? When we talk about operationally, a lot of people have talked about infrastructure resilience. How do we have backup plans in case the climate has changed and spiked a turbidity contamination into a river that is feeding raw water into a system? So we need to have backup plans, we need to have intakes that are robust, that can be designed to now take the extremes that we are having in our systems or in our environment right now. Of course, finally, socially, everyone has been talking about socially, but if you're going to have social inclusion, one of the first things you're going to do is to ensure that those people, the communities you're working with and different stakeholders have access to data, access to the actual information. The regulator needs to see the same information as the utility person, as the community. That way, transparency is taken care of. And if we do take care of that, then we are going to build trust, and ultimately social inclusion is going to follow in that sense. We have to be mindful that in today's world, professionals have to come into play. And what we are doing as academians, we need to have the capacity of people who understand the water quality and what needs to be done. We are building the professional that are potentially going to build the gaps so that we have consistent compliance in our system. We are building the professionals that are going to enforce the regulations that are coming through in the system. My program has done that up to this point, and it's been purely academic. So if you ask me, how do I change the program to be able to contribute to the resilience, a couple of things that come into my mind. I have to envision this program now as moving away from just being academic to getting into the communities there with a network of those professionals that can monitor reliable data. When they bring in the data, then it becomes easier for people to make the decisions. And I've said that several times because many times we make decisions not based on evidence. But we need that reliable data that we are going to use to make decisions. So that's the one thing. We have the professionals we've trained now almost institutionalized into networks of people collecting data that they're bringing back into the center. The second thing that I want to think about, if I transition this, is that if you're going to make sure that we build resilience, again, we have to make sure that whichever data is available out there is accessed. The reason why that becomes important is because people are going to learn from each other. They can see what is happening in different areas, and they're going to ask themselves, why is this area performing much better than I do? And if that happens, then we are going to have people working together, and that, in a way, is still an issue. I was talking to one of the colleagues, and he's telling me, in my place, I have different players in the same county. How do we harmonize what they do in this case? If we do not have a way we share data, if we do not have platforms that are going to help us understand what everyone is doing, we are always going to find ourselves in situations where we can't build resilience. And then lastly on that, we need, and everyone has been talking about it, we need to ensure that we get the trust. We get the people to be able to work with us, the communities. We need to be able to bring them on board right from the planning phases, but also to tell them when something is wrong, when it has gone wrong, but commit to tell them that, look, we are going to correct this. And if you commit with a community to correct something which has gone wrong and you don't, you're killing that trust. But if you do, you're going to bring them on board to make sure we work together. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think your emphasis on data, I might come back to you again on that. But let me go to Engineer Bujure Moses. You actually represent the utilities that we regulate here. But you realize, as our discussion has been growing systematically, and we're trying to see how the quality is improving. We have also looked at how we can support particular aspects of refugees and others. Now we are coming to you. The circular system. We all want to drink, discharge safely, and reuse. And you know, in most of the facilities that we use, that you superintend, are actually not doing the last bit of it. We leave it to everybody. Do you think utilities are prepared to make Uganda's first commercial scale investments in the treatment and reuse of our effluents, and what regulatory incentives could trigger it immediately? What is that kiboko we can give you to make sure you move into that direction? Of course, don't tell me that we're waiting for government, because that's not be considered an answer. Tell us what you as the utility provider is willing to take on that.
Thank you. Maybe commercial investment is a bit of a big word, because someone might look at it as investment comparable to the energy sector, the oil and gas sector. Now, in sanitation, first of all, sanitation is not attractive to the private sector, but we have tried something, because we are required to comply under the law. And the sector has constructed a number of fecal sludge treatment facilities around the country. It has also constructed public sanitation facilities. So we're trying to look at how best do we attract demand for these facilities, so that once we attract that demand, then we are able to recover. And one approach we have looked at is to, first of all, to create awareness that we have the service. And secondly, we have also acquired cesspool emptiers that can evacuate the sludge from the households to the treatment facilities that has been provided by partners and government. And we have built capacity in terms of staffing. So we have also looked around within the private sector to see who can be our client in terms of providing the sludge and the waste. And in the oil region, we have looked at Total and ECOP, and we have signed a contract with them to evacuate their waste to our treatment facility, of course at a cost, but with an arrangement that we can collect and they pay later. We have looked at the institutions like Uganda Police and the prisons, customers we feel that can generate sufficient waste, the schools, and those would be our starting point, so that we collect enough waste, create enough demand for our treatment facilities, and then eventually, I think we will be able to reach that level of commercial recovery.
Oh, thank you very much. It's a journey, but we must think about that journey now. Now, climate change is key here in our discussion, so I need to go to the really expert in this, Mr. Semambo. You know, there are still people, I'm sure there might even be some here, who think climate change is for 2040. It's a distant far. But I'm happy we are holding this discussion after we had a very, very nice temperature issue here in Kampala. And everybody was saying, is it this climate change? We told you, yeah, we told you long ago it's climate change. So, the issue is we must have the utilities plan and budget, because whereas the temperature is what we are feeling, in the end we might have effect on our resources in terms of water resources, and some utilities may run out of water. What should Uganda utilities begin budgeting for and implement in the next financial years to avoid being caught unprepared in relation to climate resilience? And remember, in terms of our budget, that means we Ugandans as a government, you are the lead department that actually certifies that the budget of Uganda is climate-proofed, everything is okay. So now lower it down to utilities. How are you ensuring that they put in the budget? Over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator. I think the question is a little bit difficult for me to say that budget for this and budget for that. But I can just share some bit of it. So, having understood that climate change is affecting the water utilities, and we know the magnitude of the problem as the players, and I think the magnitude of the problem is not relative to all the places, meaning that it require various technologies to be applied in various places to deliver the services that we are looking out for. So now it is really very imperative to understand the levels of the problem that exist in somewhere and what technology can work from that side. But I think from the climate change point of view, whereas water is a key ingredient in terms of boosting resilience at community level, regional level, farm level, it is also very important for us as we are planning that we look into the system itself, not only the water, because the water, people need it. Farms need it to do their businesses. But what about the system that enable the water to be delivered? So it is really very important that we look into the resilience of the systems so that we maintain the sustainability that we're talking about. That is really very important because it will help, one, in ensuring that we have constant supply amidst the climate hazards that will be happening in particular areas. But then number two, the ultimate goal of providing water for resilience will also be attained, meaning that the operation and maintenance is one of the areas that we have to look into. Apart from the resilient systems in terms of the technologies, in terms of innovation, the operation and maintenance has to be beefed up to ensure that we can withstand the climate shocks and hazards that could be impacting on our water infrastructure. And I think that is very key. Number two, we could look at the aspect of governance. Governance, I think, is one element that we have to look into because most of the presentations that have been coming in the morning sessions there's a big gap to beef up the governance in the water sector, most of what called the utilities. And in that way, it would enable us to ensure that we are doing the rightful things at the rightful time. Let me just give an example, is that my brother Martin, I think, who presented the Northern Umbrella, did mention that one of the operational challenges is actually the high costs of energy in ensuring that water is provided. And he mentioned that they run out of diesel, sometimes petrol. So if you're looking at the climate and sustainability, the systems that are running on diesel and petrol, if you want to tap into climate change financing, will not attract climate change financing. Because you are providing water for resilience, but again you're contributing to causing climate change. Meaning that we have to design these systems, but also looking into the efficiency system in delivery, also how they operate. So there are technologies that into that direction to ensure that we are developing the clean water systems for the country. So despite that people need the water, but we are not going to use unsustainable energy production to produce water which is required. So we look into the green energy in ensuring that. So moderator also will take note of the chain linkage, that the water talking about is not something which is found on source. It is coming from somewhere. So I think the aspect of the nature-based solution, the catchment management, are also very key in ensuring that the water that we are trying to look into is actually continuously provided. So despite we're talking about climate extremes, but again, if you don't have a providing ecosystem that can enable the water infrastructure to continuously get the water that needs, then be a problem in terms of connectivity. It can start for the shortest period of time, but in the long run, it may not yield what we want. So maybe the issue is that how do we also embrace the aspect of ecosystem resilience to ensure that even resilience is also maintained. So I believe that that is really very important. And lastly, is about the human. So do we have the required expertise to design this climate resilient infrastructure? I think as engineers, that is really very important. The government of Uganda went ahead to develop what we call climate and disaster risk screening tools in 6 sectors, and water is one of them. It is intended to ensure that the players in the water sector are actually be cognizant that the risk of climate change. So before designing any project or any program on climate change, it is very imperative that you subject any water infrastructure to climate and disaster screening, so that now you take care of the risks from the inception phase of the design of the. Also, it gives us an indication of the cost, but also the nature of the material to be used and the design that could withstand climate risk. So I believe that we have to look at that kind of like a budgeting holistically from the human element in terms of capacity building, governance, the ecosystems which providing water, and the water infrastructure itself, so that now we are able to provide the water which is required for resilience building. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. I think the engineers in the house are listening, and not only engineers, all other professionals who are involved in design and social aspects of water. But now I'm just going to get back to all of you, especially on the areas where you excited me. One, I'm going to start on data. Professor here, you talked a lot about data and its importance. And when I listened to you, you spoke closely what the Commissioner Water Utility Regulation talked in his opening remarks. He talked of reliable data, sometimes not being there. He talked of timing of this data. But my experience with the data, sometimes it becomes so costly to collect it, and sometimes too many parameters that are difficult to analyze. So you as a professor now, how do you guide us on this, specifically on water quality and other regulation aspects? How do we take this data so that we can afford to do it, and it's easy for them to get information to regulators?
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. That's very correct. Data collection is usually very expensive. However, what other people have done over the years, they've had that initial investment which is expensive, and then let the systems now almost run autonomously. They run, collect data without people being involved. And the only cost now that you're going to get into would be a cost of the maintenance of those systems. But then what that means is that you're moving away from the manual gradually into the digital age. And if you're going to do that, it means you're going to have a very strong background of interconnected systems. So the system you have here should be able to have a linkage with the systems that are in the field. And ideally, you're moving from the area of manual to Internet of Things, and then from there, you're going into the area where you're going to have predictive from the data we have, where the AI now starts to come in. So my suggestion would be that we have to understand that in the era of climate change, water safety planning is going to require, first of all, continuous full funding that is committed. It's going to require professionals that are understanding what the problem is and how to manage the problem you're going to have. So capacity building is very key in that area. And they can span a whole range of disciplines, from the social to the technical in the engineering we have, to the water scientists in between there. And then it's also going to require us, if you're going to go ahead, to be able to have openness in terms of where we get that data. We shouldn't be holding the data because we are blocking people to innovate. When you get people to access the data with ease, we are building trust, but also we are giving them an opportunity to innovate about that data. How can they use that data to do different things? So first thing, we need to commit to invest, and we need to make sure we have the people who are going to use those investments very well, and we need to use the data very well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Engineer Chimezere, where I'm coming back to you is something about schools and health facilities touches my heart, and I'm sure many people here. But we need this to be integrated into the water utilities. And when I talk about water utilities, I'm not talking about only the big ones, the small ones, and where most of our people actually live. Do you have any technical packages that we can use to support actually our utilities in investment planning in relation to wash in schools and facilities, and also just to fund through those utilities so that we strengthen them? I'm interested in how we can help the small water utilities really work with the schools and health centers in their areas of jurisdiction to provide the services which are climate resilient in terms of technical guidance.
Yeah, thank you. When we look at the schools and healthcare facilities, these are users. So they form committees. That is, we have the school management committee and health care management committee at that level. So now what we have been struggling is linking the service providers with these users. So the service providers, we have been having the district local government as the service providers, but their role has been investment and little support in terms of operation and maintenance. So what we are promoting is now the utilities to have direct link with these users so that they can support them in managing the facilities. The users, of course, they have to pay for the services, and then they get the services. I think that is where we still have the problems, because these users are public-like services, and they are given little money to operate and maintain these facilities. But moving forward, that is the linkage we want to strengthen, so that we strengthen the users and also the service providers, so that we provide efficient and effective services to these schools and healthcare facilities.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I'm coming to Moses, Engineer Pujure. There's something which I listened to this morning from Dr. our manager from the north. He talked about 62%, and I was hearing all people moving in their chairs. You know, our target remains at 80 to 85%, but I also saw that in the earlier report that we had fallen short of our target from our report by 20% in terms of connections. Do you have any specific plans that you have to really support the utilities to make sure that they reach 95%? Because Moses was here recommending that you need parameters for refugees separate from theirs, but I'm sure all the people who spoke were from utilities. You're the coordinator. Tell us what you can do to support them to ensure that the functionality, which is a key parameter for regulation, is actually achieved.
Thank you. Functionality has always been defined from the perspective of at least you drop some water, some time. But now in this service industry, we are now required to report on how reliable we are in terms of hours of service. At the same time, we are required to make sure the people receiving the service are satisfied. So when you say we are at 85%, it means for every 100 customers you interview, 85% should say they're happy with our service. Now, moving to 95% means that for every 100 customers you interview, they must say they are happy with our service, and that means water must be available almost 23 hours out of the 24 hours. The quality must be good, and complaints must be addressed in time. But what has been affecting functionality? Breakdowns. When you have breakdowns, the time you take to respond increase your downtime. Non-revenue water. When we have cuts as a result of these roadworks going on, then we are going to affect the service. The dwindling water resources versus the increasing demand. Now, all these require us to have some bit of innovation that, because we can't do away with them, we can't do away with UDCL not supplying power, because now those are third-party problems, but they affect our performance. So we have tried to look at different innovation, and we thank the government on the side of power. We are now looking at solar power pumping through Nexus Green project, through the Energy Scale-Up project, and our individual contributions. We have tried to make sure that at least we have standby options for energy, and that will go a long way to assure some bit of supply hours. Then we are looking at the dwindling water resources. This is an effect of climate change. And initially, most of our sources are groundwater sources. And the time we would install the pumps, we would wait for the next 20 years, assuming that the yield remains the same. But with the changes in the climate, we may need to continuously monitor the yields underground through remote sensing, through pumping and flushing, test pumping and flushing the wells at least once or two years. Then we're able to know the yield so that we respond accordingly. On the side of the losses we have in the networks and the aging infrastructure, we need to invest. But investment comes with the challenge of the lack of available resources or funds for investment. Therefore, we are looking at adopting asset management strategies where we strategically invest. You look at an investment that gives you bigger impact, but with less requirement of investment. We are looking at predicting risk through preventive maintenance planning, and we have adopted an automated system called the computer-based management system. We maintain a system where we record all the breakdowns, and we are able to continuously monitor our response and how long it takes to respond to the breakdowns. We have also gone to a level of commitment where we have developed a charter so that our customers know what they expect from us. And that is some form of accountability, because if you know that someone is going to check what you are going to give, then you need to up your game. So we have developed customer charters where we tell the customer this is what you expect, whether it is the connection, you should expect it in this time, whether it is the service of supply, you should expect it in this number of hours, and that contractual commitment will enable us supply and provide service all the time. We have also internally tried to look at staff productivity, and we have gone for a delegated management framework where we decentralize our services to the areas, and we enter contracts with these staff to make sure that they perform, and at the end of the day we provide incentives for good performance. So we believe that all these interventions, and of course not forgetting that we may have to invest in connections, invest in upgrading our networks and repairing tanks. We have applied for more funding from government. We have also looked at other partners like the World Bank and NGOs, and we hope all these interventions will help us improve the functionality to the level we expect.
Okay, thank you. There's a lot of work going on. Now, but that relates closely to Mr. Semambo. We're talking about regulation here. They told us this morning that in the refugee settlements, only 22% is what they are collecting, whereas the rest is 89%. You see the discrepancy. For us, the common people, and then the other people only do 22%. But now, in terms of climate resilience and humanitarian activities, are you doing anything really in that area? These humanitarian activities which are involved, are we involving them? Are we regulating them in relation to climate change? Why I'm interested in this particular, because when we got an influx of refugees in the north, actually it affected even the point sources because the vegetation was all burnt down and so many other things. So my interest with you as a climate change department, have you supported the humanitarian agency to ensure that they integrate climate resilient activities in all the activities they do with refugees? Over to you.
Thank you very much, moderator. I would say that we are very lucky as a country that instead of climate change department going to the humanitarian organizations to tell them to mainstream climate change in what they are doing, they have learned from the negative impact of climate change with the work that they are supporting the humanitarian organizations. And that's why the very reason as to why our pledge, which we did for refugee, is really cognizant of ensuring that climate change and environment issues are integrated in the refugees, but we also emphasize and the host community. The reason being that we noted a lot of humanitarian organizations are really they are focusing on the camps where the refugees are concentrated, and yet the resources that they are looking for to support the refugees are getting from the community or from the host community. And it was bringing a little bit of conflict over resource management. That why are you supporting 100% the people that we are hosting? And that was the message between the host communities and the refugees. So we made that bit of emphasis that let mainstream climate change, but it goes beyond the refugees in the camps, but also the host community. So what we are doing right now, we are in the process of updating our national determined contribution, called the Climate Change Action Plan. And we have had several engagements with the humanitarian organizations that are dealing with the refugees. Some of them. There is the UNHCR, there is Refugee International, among others, who have been engaging to ensure that all the intervention that you are looking out for refugees actually are designed in the form of responding to climate change adaptation and climate change mitigation. So what missing apparently right now is that generating the actual evidence, because in this plan, we are looking at the setting up the targets and figures, that if you want to reduce vulnerabilities in the refugee districts camps, what are the levels of vulnerability that we need to set our targets against the intervention we're going to be doing. The same is happening for the mitigation. If you're talking about issues to do with the unsustainable environment, how they prepare their meals, etc., is that they are using the sources that are attributed to greenhouse gases. But we cannot, or we have not yet quantified the much of the greenhouse gases which is coming out of the refugees and the hosting community, so that when you set up the interventions, you can also put out the targets that you be to monitor the emission reduction levels, the same for resilience building. And this is the stage where we are. We are working as a team with those humanitarian organizations to ensure that we generate what we call the evidence that could inform the intervention that we put in our climate change action plan. But the climate change action plan, which is the NDC, will not bring all the detail. I just want to assure the participants here. After I've done the climate change action plan, we do what we call the implementation plan of the climate change action plan, or of the NDC. And this is where we shall see all the details in terms of the actions that are targeting the refugees and the hosting community. So we empower those who are working on WASH to be part and parcel of this consultation and engagement, ensuring that the interventions that are put into the refugees are actually speaking to the WASH priorities that we want to have as a country. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. There's a lot we can document. Now, the audience, soon I'm coming to you, so just prepare your one question. You can also state the person you may direct the question, or you can just say it. You can also give a comment. Please don't also do a presentation. Don't give it with the opening remarks, the main text, and then a summary, and then even recommend. It might become too complicated for us. So finally, let me come to Dr. Muhirirwe. When you're sharing with us here what you're doing and what GIZ is doing and how you've given us your ideas, it was very exciting. Now, there's an area where GIZ has really been championing in Uganda, both in infrastructure and especially developing the modules for training, vocational training. I'm interested in that because you cannot, all of you have touched on human, you need to have the expertise. People must have the knowledge. And we cannot talk about people up there without talking about every person involved in WASH, every technician, every person trained in vocational activities. Not only in WASH, but across all sectors. Do you have any plans, or have you already developed modules within that training program for even vocational training that speak to climate change and climate resilience, so that we integrate the things from the lowest level?
Okay, thank you for that. I want to start on a point. A few months ago, the Prime Minister launched what we call the Water and Environment Sector Refugee Response Plan. And in that, there are so many things, because the initial idea was to have the utilities into the refugee space. And it means that you need the local people, because, I mean, if I am going to run a utility in a refugee space, it's best that if I'm going to keep my costs down, I have to use the expertise there than importing people in there. And the plan did break down, instead of just the transfer of the management of the water services, how has the forestry cover changed? What do you need to restore it? How have the wetlands changed? In terms of the catchments and the micro-catchments, which ones have plans, and how can we do this? And this all costed in there. And this did start with the start of the WhatsApp program also, in which initially we started with the Arua Technical Institute in terms of development of the modules and getting them certified through DIT and approval with Ministry of Education, and going ahead to train the technicians within the northern region. And that partnership came to a close, and we moved it to Nakawa in terms of building the capacities of the institutes, but also building the capacities of the staff of the Northern Umbrella and the technicians that are within the community and the refugees. And in the coming years, we are saying, but if we are talking about climate resilience, nature-based solutions, we take it a little bit higher and moved even to the water management zones, and that's the Upper Nile. The staff have the capacity to develop these designs, to guide the technicians on what to do, because it's one thing wanting to implement a solution on how the technicians should do it, but the engineer must come up with the design and monitor this. And this is continuing, but also we are looking into that when we speak of these modules. In the recent, we've been having a discussion to extend this support to the Water Resources Institute, that beyond working with ATI and Nakawa, because now they are technicians, we have engineers seated in the room, and when you ask one that I have a small micro catchment, when you talk about water source protection, everyone will first think, have a borehole, or a water source, in what radius, gazette it, and all that. But if I look at it in a larger scale, trying to look into what is feeding that borehole, what are the factors of influence, and which zone should I work in, which trees should I put where do I need to return the river to its original course, that the engineers also need to be trained and be certified and be reminded of what they small learned in school. When you come to class, we tell you a few things, but then when you come in the field, we've had that you come, because JZ, we are normally working directly through our technical cooperation, that we are using the technical expertise of the ministry staff to develop these plans. So we are saying, let's take it higher, that if we are continuing to work in this way, then they need to be trained, they need to be certified, and that is something that we are still in discussion within the next coming years with additional EU financing and financing from the German government. Yeah.
Wow, thank you. Water Institute speaks directly. And don't look very far. We have good CVs to train those engineers. And we will tell them what climate change means, GGA, and all those adaptation terminology. Now, coming to the audience, we have the other side, this side. Then we have men this side and women the other side. I'm going to make sure everybody gets attention, provided you don't deliver a thesis. So I'm going to start. I saw the first lady's hand. I've seen two ladies' hands. I'm not going to be secretary, but I'm starting from this end. So number one, the two ladies here, number one, number two, number three, number four. And then I'll come this side also. Just bear with me. Can I have my microphone moved? If you deliver thesis and I say stop, you will stop, huh? Go on.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to the presenters. I have two very quick questions. One goes to Professor Issa. You talked about trusting people and increasing participation. And you even said that we need to commit to tell them that their problems, the different problems, are going to be addressed. Practically, how should we do that? What new things should we do differently? Because trust levels are very low. People's trust levels towards government are very, very low. My second question goes to Muhammad. You said that we need to demonstrate commitment to the NDCs and the NAPs and everything that we have put in place. How differently should we do that? Haven't we demonstrated? Because we have all these documents in place, how differently should we do that? Thank you, Chair.
That's a good one. Next, please. But I think there's trust for government. That's why we are here.
Thank you very much, and thank you to our panelists. My question is to Mr. Semambo, and it's on as you were talking through budgeting and planning and the things that we need to think through for the utilities, how would you translate that into, for example, 2 performance indicators that utilities should be required to report on that would contribute to our NDCs as a country? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Down the other side, there are 2 hands the other side. I think the rest have come through the window. Let's first stick to the door.
Yeah, thank you very much. My question goes to that one of climate change. I happen to come from Kigezi region, which used to be cool. But these days, the climate has completely changed, almost to desertification. Why? There is climate, nature, and human conflict. Government approach to wetland, for example, preservation, is rather use of force rather than mitigating factors like conferencing, sensitization. How do we advise you as a climate change specialist? How do you advise the government? From the presentation in the morning of Dr. Callistus has told us there should be a relationship between mankind and the environment. For example, the swamps can be used as alternative sources of income. But approach of government is using force to push people from wetlands rather than sensitization and engagement. How do you advise the government?
Okay. But Semambo is part of government. I don't know how he's advising himself, but it's okay. You noted the question.
Thank you, moderator. My name is Wilson Amanya from Global Ask International. My brief question goes to the Climate Change Department. My question goes as, how can Uganda's national determined contribution implementation directly influence planning in the water sector? Are utilities being guided on integrating climate risk profile to their investment decisions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. It seems you didn't hear my words when I started. I said there is WASH, regulation, and climate change. You only had the last one. Everybody has asked questions on climate change. Can we also diversify our questions? Because Semambo's book is already full. But there are very few, but I'm sure all of you have something to add on to that. Can we have this side? I saw hands, kindly. Yes, number 1 there, senior.
I have the mic. Thank you, moderator.
Okay.
Kasenge Freight, Central
question.
My question goes to the climate change too. What measures is on board by the engineers to formulate and influence the communities to embark to affordable cooking systems to redeem the climate from murder?
Thank you for being brief. So kindly come to senior this side. There were many hands. Have you answered? The questions been answered? And gender this side is terrible. Can I get some gender? 1, 2? Don't complain that I didn't try. Please go on.
Good afternoon. Mine goes to the professor.
To the PS?
To the professor.
Oh, professor, okay.
Yeah. This water safety planning, when we were piloting it in Uganda, there was that thinking that we are only discussing the product, the water. And there was a school of thought that it should be holistic. It should even form the budget framework of this infrastructure, through that by the time you reach the other side, you have the best product. Now I want to ask you your thoughts on, 1, about the framework of water safety planning in totality, so that even climate change does not have does not need to come here and start labor to convince us. The other one is very little is talked about in this country of safety, of sanitation safety planning. And we have now, I think, the second edition, which came out in 2023. Thank you.
Sanitation, yes, for sure. You speak to my heart, yeah.
Thank you, Commissioner. Arthur Kayaga, Water Officer Buyukwe. Unfortunately, mine is also on climate change. Yes, we all seem to agree that climate change is a big challenge for this country. I wanted to inquire from the ministry what their position is in line with having climate change action plans for all districts where these utilities operate. And probably something that the regulator can add as a performance indicator.
Okay, I think there was a question to one of the members on how that can be improved. Any other question this side? This side, yes. There are some hands this side. Is there somebody who had left, I think, one person? Do you still have interest on the left-hand side? No, then let me come here. Thank you. You heard what the audience has been listening to and what touches their hearts. And I think we should give a big hand clap to the organizers. They talked about climate change, and if we had missed it, definitely we would have missed the interest that all our people have and all of us in climate change. So, Mr. Semambo, the order you start is okay, but the time you have is not unlimited. Kindly respond.
Thank you very much, moderator, and thank you very much, participants from the audience. These are very interesting questions and comments, but it's important also to provide some bit of character. I'll remain around if all not addressed in this, from this panel. But just important here to know, how do we increase our commitment? The NDC must be progressive in nature. Being progressive, it means that you are to demonstrate that what you have planned before in the initial NDCs, the next time when you are submitting your next NDC, it has to show some bit of progression. And that is the requirement by the UNFCCC, the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. And how do we do this? There are two elements. One, on the side of mitigation, is that if you set yourself to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 24.7%, when you are submitting the next NDC, you have to show some bit of increment in terms of reducing greenhouse gas emissions. And that one will show that the NDC for the country is actually progression and you're increasing on your commitment. Then number three, it can be a commitment in terms of the targets. For example, you can remain to increase the areas under irrigation, okay, as an intervention. Instead of doing 1,000, then you move to 3,000. You are increasing on your commitment. The intervention remains the same, but the coverage, you are trying to expand. It can happen across the board, even if it comes to electricity, even if it comes to water, even if it comes to issues to deal with natural resource governance in terms of acreage. So that one also demonstrates a bit of commitment and adaptation and mitigation. And also this one speaks to the aspect of the indicators. The indicators, the performance indicators, that when we design the NDC, there is what we call facilitating transparency, clarity, and understanding. Until when you have proper interventions with the proper activities, then you set proper targets, is when you have proper indicators. And this is what we are driving to be improving, and this will resonate very well in terms of our measurement, reporting, and verification, which has a component of adaptation. But within those indicators, they are sector specific. You can talk about the WASH-rated indicators. Nobody is going to set for you indicators, apart from you experts who are working in WASH. You say, this is what you can do, and this is the measurable indicator. The NDC is not for Climate Change Department, it's not for Ministry of Water and Environment. It is a national NDC. That's why you find all the sectors. and the sector experts propose proper intervention for resilience, proper intervention for mitigation, basing on emissions coming out of the sector, basing on vulnerability which is being imposed on the sector, and then they come up with the targets in form of commitment and indicators to measure. So it is corrective actions, it is more of guidance which is provided. And I think the last one, the second one is about Chigezi, that's number 3. What do we do? The moderator has said that is all the government. But the government uses 2 approaches. The first approach is to make you aware the relevance of these ecosystems. But you know, as a human being, some will come aware, some will live peacefully, some will not live peacefully. So what government uses is actually uses the 2 approaches. First and foremost is to make people aware about the value of protecting these ecosystems, including the wetlands and the forestry, etc. Then the second approach is that those who fail to adhere to the laws, then you have to apply some bit of force to ensure that they do what they have to do. Apparently, the next question will be, moderator, that why are you doing it selectively? And I think this question has been coming, that you leave the other one, you come to the other one, and this is why government, that's why trying to boost in terms of the human enforcement, to ensure that the police is trained, but already they have environmental police protection, they have to be trained, but the numbers are not enough. This is what government is trying to boost up, that you have the required numbers, but all the activities that are permissible in being done in those areas, government will continue to allow them to be done, provided they are regulated, like fish farming, small vegetable cultivation. Some of them are allowed, but for detailed information, you can contact the Wetlands Department in this ministry. They can tell you the activities which are permissible to be done in those areas and those that are not permissible in those in specific areas. So that one, it will help us to move very well. Then NDC, to including some bits of investment planning. I think this is the question which is being asked by a colleague, maybe somewhere. How do you align the planning? First and foremost, you can see NDC is not going to solve all the problems which we have in Uganda. It is about the priority of the priorities, okay? That's why you cannot find all the issues of water that you want to do in the NDC. We have the separate sectoral plans. But in NDC, we are looking at what is it that we can prioritize to be implemented within a time frame of 5 years, is what you put in the NDC, but addressing the problem at hand. So meaning that the proper guidance is that how do we align the NDC and the National Development Planning so that now when we are translating into annual work plans, they are not detached. And this is what we've been encouraging the program secretariats, that the NDC, the National Development Plan, have to be aligned, they have to speak. In the NDC, you have interventions that speak to condition, and also have intervention that speak to uncondition. The condition one is what you can only do when you have external support in terms of technology and finance. The unconditioned one is what we do by our domestic resources. So that's why for them they are well aligned with the National Development Plan. So meaning that if the NDC is the Climate Change Action Plan, we ensure that it speaks to the development plan and our program plans. That's what it means. And then from the development plans, we elaborate it into our PIAPs, the program implementation plan, and from the implementation plan, we extract the annual work plans and budget. So it is that connectivity that we want to do to ensure that it is not detached. Then about cooking, and this is the second last, about cooking, the aspect of promoting clean cooking is already an intervention in the National Climate Change Action Plan, but also the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development has what we call energy transition plan for this country. And it is also focusing on aspect of clean cooking. So government has been promoting clean cooking through the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. But importantly, as a part of the clean development strategies and part of carbon projects, this is some of the applications that we are receiving as Ministry of Water and Environment. There are so many private people that would want to support clean cooking in terms of carbon projects. So we are at the level of assessing most of them to ensure that whatever they're going to do is actually there is aspect of efficiency in the clean cooking. So this is something that government of Uganda is actually promoting by the Ministry of Energy. And when it comes to carbon is when we come in to regulate as Ministry of Water and Environment. But purely clean cooking is at heart of government of Uganda and is a climate change action for the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Development. We only regulate the aspect of carbon when the cooking is to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. And that's when we give them letters of no objection and authorization to get additional resources to boost the clean cooking in the country. Lastly, Chair, is about the climate change action plans. The climate change action plans is a legal requirement by the National Climate Change Act that all local governments have to develop climate change action plans. And I think apparently by January, we shall be having the guidelines for the development of district climate change action plans. And importantly, we are getting support also from Water for People, and I think this is really very important, so that now the local governments are guided on how to put the climate change The climate change action plans. We have seen that some have attempted to do that, but they are using different methodologies, different approaches, yet the law requires them that once this is being done, that they submit to the minister responsible for climate change, who's the Minister of Water and Environment. So we are supporting several local governments in terms of ensuring that they do the rightful work, but it's not the mandate of the Minister of Water and Environment to come and do for you or for the district. It is the responsibility of the local government to develop their climate change action plan. What we are doing is the technical know-how and ensure that there's proper guidelines for those local governments to do climate change action plans. Chair, as I finalize, that the climate change action plans are not only for adaptation. They have to respect the aspect of mitigation and what we call the delivery mechanism. The delivery mechanism is about the technologies, the finance, and other inclusivity aspects. Talk about the gender. So the practice that we are seeing that there are some local governments that are doing climate adaptation plans and they are calling them climate action plans. An action plan should be able to respond to mitigation, should be able to respond to adaptation, and the delivery mechanism, which is the means of implementation, the technology, and the required capacity for those people in the district to implement this climate change action plan. Thank you very much.
Okay, should we give Mr. Semambo a very big hand clap? I think he has tried to address our issues. Professor, maybe I come to you. Okay. The rest also be ready and respond to the issues.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Jen, for this question. And I'm going to answer it from a point of view of not knowing exactly what you've done, but understanding the element of building trust. It's really a process of courtship. It's very similar to courtship. You just require small incremental steps that are consistent with a person that show them that you are good and they're going to benefit from the relationship you're building. All right? So they have to be small, incremental, but consistent steps. And as I mentioned, if the step is to say, I'm going to provide a borehole, and you actually provide the borehole, but when it breaks down, you're nowhere to be seen, then you're going to break the trust. All right? So let it be consistent and follow it up. Something else, again, I would imagine working with communities and from some of the social engagements we've done, is you start from a point of listening, understanding what that community is about. Be aware of what they take as important to them and what they don't necessarily take as important. Whatever they take as important, make sure that is protected. All right? That way you're going to go. I believe you're going to build a trust. And then involve them. Again, this has been talked about, but involve them right from the start. Keep them updated. I remember in the times when I was busy in the social sensitization, environmental and social impact assessments, telling a community that we are not going to get this tree down because it is of value to you, and the following day the excavator comes and takes it down, could cause a lot of issues on that project. So in other words, you either explain to them why you're going to take down that tree, which is what is the wronging to them, and why is it beneficial to them, or how are you going to replace the value they're losing in that sense. So in a way, communication when you're working with those people becomes a very big part. And then lastly about that I found really able to work is to kind of pick out a community or a small nucleus of people who believe in what you're doing. Work with them, show them the benefits, let them be the champions of you going out there to ensure that that works. SK, the water safety planning and the product, I think it's become clear now that if you're going to do very good water safety planning, you have to come all the way from the catchment. And I've had several people talk about what the catchment plays in water safety planning. You have to come all the way from the catchment. What are the benefits? What are the kind of interventions you need to do in the catchment that are going to affect the raw water intake? Because if you leave out the catchment, we are always going to get into a situation where we have the water source in a state that is going to be super expensive to get the product back to the community. However, if you start in the catchment, you are starting to work with improving, lessening the inputs you're going to have to get the water back to the community at an appreciable price. Again, how do we communicate the importance of each and every step that we're going to do? Now, in terms of budgeting or budgeting framework, I'm sure if we get into the bigger level of the catchment interventions, then the ministry has to come in. And I'm sure they've done several catchment management plans going on. And that's part of the whole process that is going on. The water source protection plans that have been commissioned and actually implemented, all that's part of what we are talking about in this case. So, in essence, we have to look not just at the product, we have to look at the whole value chain of where the water comes from all the way to where the water is consumed in terms of water safety planning. And if you look at each and every need of that, there will be a budget requirement, and at whichever level it is, the responsible entity should be able to budget for that part in that sense. In terms of sanitation planning, sanitation safety planning, that is equally important. That is equally important. But again, when you look back a little bit, if you do a good water safety plan, you're partly starting to tackle the sanitation safety plan, right? So the effort you're giving to the sanitation planning should be as equal to me in terms of investment as what we are going to give to the water safety plan, because they are interlinked in many ways. So if you don't have a good sanitation plan, you're going to be having a very aggressive process to get safe water to the community that you are trying to protect. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much. But when you're delivering your last sentences, we noticed the arrival of our chief guest, the Permanent Secretary, Minister of Water and Environment, Dr. Alfred Okoto Kidi. Can we all welcome him with a round of applause? Thank you very much. Mr. PS, it has gone very, very well. It has been going very well. We're in the last session, and we are still here. So in summary, that shows that things are going very well. So just conclude this, I'll hear from Dr. Sandra Wilberforce. But also when you're talking, you should put something about sanitation, because in the last question, there was an issue raised about sanitation. But Doctor, when you're talking about courtship, you touched me a bit. What courtship were you talking about? The Gen Z ones or the one we know? This courtship of these days. Sandra.
Okay, if that is maybe the final contribution that I could have missed out earlier, is in our continued commitment to ensure climate resilience is to continue to strengthen the capacities of our local, I don't want to call them local, our institutions, and that is the umbrella, the district, and then the water management zones, because they are foot soldiers. They are the people that you go to that they will tell you the real problem as you're dreaming and sitting here thinking that you have a wonderful intervention. So it's that we are very deliberate on strengthening their capacity, on involving them, but also creating systems that inform us before we take decisions or inform management, and systems that actually work, that are developed to inform us in real time. I think that's the final.
Yeah, thank you very much, moderator. For the last few hours I've been here, I think I'm very happy about the presentation by Lillian, the journey we have taken to strengthen the regulation of sanitation services. And I think we have to push that forward so that we reach the last step as soon as possible.
Engineer Bujure.
The utilities play a major role in both improving service delivery and at the same time contributing to the wellness of the environment. So we are a key player and we commit to improve service delivery.
Okay, thank you. I think some of us had already a mouthful, so I really, PS, before you stepped in, this panel has really looked at a number of issues which I'll just give you in 3 sentences. One, we've looked at how we can work with our development partners, which was ably presented by Dr. Mohiri here, in order to link what we do in WASH regulation and climate change. We have also, through the academia, professor here has really shared us what they are doing and what we can also do in terms of managing our data and ensuring that our quality aspects are actually done. Semambo had the biggest mouthful from the audience because they want to know what NDCs, what we are doing in terms of climate change, and more so, well, we are not following the soft approaches in the wetlands in Kigezi. But I think they have ably answered. Moses Bujire actually told us what they're trying to do to make sure that the regulation of the utilities is actually supported, first of all, and also that it improves, especially in functionality and other aspects. So I think all of them have really given us, Engineer Chimeze shared with us, some insights about how we're working with schools and also for refugees. So that's what we covered. So I request all of us to give a big applause to our panelists. They have actually been very, very kind to us to share their knowledge, skills, and expertise. And to our organizers, so we are very grateful for the time. And we promise that we'll share this. So the next, I'll hand over to the facilitator to come, Chris, to come and take over. But I think we'll also have a group photo. So I will join you. If you want to sit, I will stand. If you want to stand, I will stand with you. And then, but then you can also say thank you to me, because one of the things I realized is we should be paying teachers more. Standing here consistently for this, and they stand for 3 hours teaching us. And then we tell them that, okay, I don't want to use some words. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Engineer Heto. All right. Those moments are always left to photographers to dictate. Thank you very much. Another round of applause as the panelists make their way to their seats. Okay, I would like to ask particularly that somebody give the climate change expert a hug. It's been hectic. All the questions came to him, but he ably executed the answering, and of course did share perspective and insights that are much needed. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me in my capacity as host and facilitator to welcome our Permanent Secretary, who is representing the State Minister for Water and Environment. Sir, you're most welcome. Just a moment, sir. I was... Can you just take a seat? All right. Thank you so much. Yeah, that is being hands-on, and no doubt coming from the top, it demonstrates exactly how things are moving around the national water and the Ministry of Water and Environment. That is something that is really commendable. We have a grand presentation of awards. Please, Mr. Kweronda too. Doctor, please make your way. We have awards that are going to be presented to different awardees, and the categories will be read to you as and how they've been laid out. But before we do that, I would like to welcome Mr. Abdul Malik Muyinda to come and take us through a wrap of how the conference has been for the benefit of our chief guest, the PS. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. In our midst, our guest of honor, just to take us through quickly what has happened in the past 2 days, sir. We had our conference organized against a number of sub-themes. We were looking at a sub-theme on utility performance and governance. We looked at policy regulation and a number of policy-related aspects, then aspects of climate change and gender inclusiveness. So on day one, we had a quick presentation from the Water Utility Regulation Department, and this was basically highlighting the key issues that came from the performance assessment of the utilities in Uganda, and the report underscored operational efficiency, which highlighted issues to do with non-revenue water, where they realized an improvement from 32% to, improvement from 38% to about 32% overall non-revenue water. There were issues to do with growth in new connections. There was a 10% growth in new connections compared to what they achieved in the previous year, from 61,000 to about, from 61,000 to about 68,000 new connections. This shows that we are actually moving towards increasing access. There were aspects to do with water quality, and this is where utilities really declined from 96% to about 94%, which is really below the minimum water quality standards. So there were issues surrounding commercial viability of utilities, and the key to highlight was the growth in new connections. Currently, we stand at about 1.1 million connections. Those are the customers that we have overall, but there was concern on aspects to do with inactive connections, which stood at about 20%, and they needed to reduce this by utilities. So there were issues to do with water sales growth, and a 13% growth in sales was realized. However, the presentation underscored the need to improve on capacity utilization, which was about 70%. However, there was recognition that whereas it is less than 70%, there are some water supply areas and systems that have reached 100% capacity utilization. financial sustainability, we see that operating ratio for national water is about 76, which is a good thing. They are using less and less of their revenue to finance their operating expenses. However, for emerging utilities, their operating ratio is greater than 100%, which means they are relying more on our subsidies and transfers and grants from development partners. So, staff costs are a bit high as a proportion of the operating expenses of the utilities. We saw a 41% compared to the benchmark of 35% for best performing utilities. However, whereas we have an overall of 41%, we observed that for emerging utilities, the proportion of staff costs to their operating expenses is way above 45%. So the key actions that came out of that presentation included strengthening the financial and operational performance of utilities, especially those that are heavily relying on subsidies. Then the need to advance capital investments and planning for high demand service areas and the need to attain full capacity utilization where it is actually less. So we saw the head of department tell us about establishing a rural water supply regulation framework to include guidelines, standards, monitoring tools, under the principle that the rural also deserve a better service like those in urban areas. Improving data integrity and digital reporting was underscored in that report. So during our day one presentations, we had a keynote speaker, Dr. Engineer Silva Mugisha, and from his keynote, we underscored a number of aspects that came up from his presentation. One among the many was that utilities must evolve faster than climate risks, financing pressures, and population growth. That came out strongly from his presentation. What also came out strongly from his presentation was that regulation should not only be for service delivery, focus on service delivery gaps, but also should be facilitating transformational capabilities, resilience, sustainability, and self-financing performance. This keynote also underscored the need for us to measure regulatory efforts from the way the sector is performing. Good performance for the sector would reflect that the regulator is performing very well. Doctor, we had a high-level panel discussion, and this largely focused on accelerating inclusive, resilient water and sanitation services. And quite critical that was underscored during this high-level panel discussion was the management of non-revenue water. Aspects came up where National Water thinks that they needed to come up with a policy provision for rooftop tanks, where they feel that non-revenue water is most likely coming from that area, and they think that industrial standards may not actually address this. So they will be sharing with us a document to guide us in policy on how to actually tackle this. Effectiveness of meters came out strongly. The need to extend subsidies to water supply services that cannot break even, also came up strongly during the presentation. Water supply in refugee settlements and landing sites, areas that require special consideration, came out strongly here, and the issue of having specific interventions that address regulation in those areas also came out critical, because they don't have to be regulated the same way the rest of the other areas are regulated. The need to attract market finance for our utilities was a strong point that came up, that as we are providing the service, we need to improve on our bankability, such that financial institutions see you as someone that is able to actually attract market finance. So the number of paper presentations where there are abstracts that were presented, and these largely focused on a number of aspects. They largely concentrated on They largely concentrated on policy, regulation, and governance. And what came out of strongly here were aspects to do with improving on our policies in tariff, improving on our regulations by customizing the indicators in the performance contracts. That one came out strongly. So there was an open debate on does regulation improve or drive performance in water supply services. Issues again of non-revenue water featured. Issues of regulatory substance versus regulatory impact came up. The need for data integrity to support regulatory decision making was critical. There was an aspect to do with independence of regulatory decisions, but what came out strongly in this engagement was the need for the regulator to have a clear source of financing away from relying on government financing. Could be a part of the subsidy, a part of the tariff should provide for regulation. Benchmarking came out strongly. So we had breakaway sessions which featured a professionalization of rural water supply by Huduma, Internet of Things. We had a presentation on unraveling dynamics of alternative financing for WASH by the different presenters. So our day 2 yesterday featured keynote from UNBS, and what came out strongly from this is for us to come up with a clear framework on how we collaborate as regulators and utilities to improve services. The need for us to comply to standards and regulations and keep referencing them came out strongly, and considerations of sustainability also came out strongly. So, day 2 focused largely on utility performance and service delivery, and here we had a number of presentations from the utilities themselves, from our development partners, but largely focusing on how they can improve performance, how they can address the gaps in their performance. Much underscored was the need for them to be financially viable. So paper presentation is featured again, and here we're talking about digitization. There were elements to do with non-revenue water management, result-based financing, and a number of issues were shared around those areas. Today, we have been looking at a number of aspects. But before I get to that, there was an open debate where we were looking at how do we transform rural water supply through regulation. And what was underscored, sir, was the need for us to have a clear regulation framework for rural water supply, but also including the refugee settlements. They needed to have a tariff that is rural-based, because the people in the rural areas might not afford as much as those that are in the urban areas. However, this was defeated by some of the development partners who say that in some areas, compliance to payment is actually more amongst the less privileged than those who we think are financially capable of paying our tariffs. So, We also underscored the need for us to look at the existing policies, the role of the different stakeholders, customizing the performance indicators and clarity on some of those indicators, as well as capacity building as we get into professionalizing rural water supply. The service providers in that space will require capacity strengthening as the rest in other service spaces. Our guest of honor, Day 2, has featured aspects on climate resilient and environmental sustainability. And we had a keynote from Dr. Calist, and from his keynote, he underscored the need for us to collaborate and coordinate a number of efforts and interventions towards addressing climate resilience and environmental sustainability. So as you walked in, you found us in a high-level panel discussion, and that's when you joined in, sir. I want to take this privilege to invite my head of department to come and provide a few insights on what we take out of this conference as a department. Thank you.
Thank you, Malik. Our chief guest, the permanent secretary, and also representing the State Minister of Water, for Water. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. We have a few minutes. I know it's time for lunch, and we are closing this. And after closing this, we're not coming back. So be patient, and we close. Mr. PS, also, Malik forgot to mention that we had the ED of UNPS here, who made the keynote address, and the ED of Uganda Electricity Generation Company Limited, Dr. Engineer Harrison Mtekanga, who was here. Among our participants, as they upload my slides, I thought it was that I should introduce to you our participants from other parts of Africa. We have the chairperson of the East and Southern Africa Water and Sanitation Regulators Association, but who is also from Lesotho, Mr. Moratsi Ramafori. Most welcome, sir. He has been with us from day one and is still with us. Ms. Nahimana Elizabeth from ESAWAS, but also from Rwanda. Thank you. Ms. Genzabuke Madebo, the Energy and Water Utilities Regulation of Tanzania. Dr. Engineer James Gigutu, Water and Sanitation Services Regulatory Board of Kenya. We have Mr. Anthony Ngaramba, the CEO of Water and Sanitation Providers Association of Kenya, but I think I saw him move out briefly. But all these have represented the other colleagues all over Africa. Now to mention that we are moving towards having an Africa Regulators Association for Water and Sanitation Supply. Also, we have partners from Water for People. Please stand up if you can. These are our sponsors, sir. IRC, headed by Ms. Jane Nabunya, please, and your team. Dr. Sandra Muhiriwe, GIZ. She's been around with them on the panel. Ms. Nabasri Lillian, the WUSP advisory. And these have supported the regulation constantly. The National Water, I think the team was here for the last 3 days. Do we have National Water here? Engineer Tombui. Thank you. And Uduma Win Nabachibi. Just to mention to you, sir, that amongst our sponsors who made this function a success, we have again Water for People. I've introduced you. Thank you very much. The ESAWAS, National Water, IRC, WUSP, that is Water and Sanitation for the Urban Population, Did you stand? Yes, you did. Pepsi-Cola, I think they're busy giving us more water. The water we have is from Pepsi-Cola, sir. Uduma, who are the consultants, I think. And finally, last but not least, GIZ and Ministry of Water. And those are the partners that have made this conference a success. And we thank you very much from the bottom of our hearts. And on behalf of the PS, we thank you. Thank you and thank you very much. And please pass on our regards to those who didn't come. So let me run through the undertakings, and then I can invite you to talk to us. Our context of the action paper, we have the guiding on the focal areas in the coming period for the Water Utility Regulation Department and the water utilities. And these are, so I can give you this, then I present from here. And these are sector-wide undertakings guided by findings in the annual regulators report and discussions, lessons from this 3-day inaugural Uganda Water Utilities Regulators Conference. The conference undertakings, this conference has demonstrated its value as a unifying platform for shared performance reflection, regulatory alignment, and strengthened sector collaboration, providing a strong basis for its continued convening. Undertaking number 1 that we have is that all water authorities and the world, or Water Utility Regulation Department, and other departments within the ministry commit to institutionalizing the Uganda Annual Water Utilities Regulators Conference as a standing annual forum for reviewing performance and agreeing on regulatory undertakings. And in that case, the next conference is scheduled for October next year, 2026. And the planning starts now. And we believe that we shall have more participants and more partners in this. Non-revenue water has been identified as a persistent sector challenge in both the reports and conference discussions, reflecting its continued impact on utility performance, financial viability, and reliability on service delivery. So the undertaking number 2 here we have is that the Water Utility Regulation Department and all the water authorities, plus other partners, commit to establishing the economic level of non-revenue water to guide utility-specific non-revenue water targets, monitoring progress quarterly, and demonstrating annual improvement across all the regulated water supply and sanitation utilities. Looking at enhancing oversight of the rural water services is essential to improving functionality, accountability, and consistency in service delivery. So undertaking number 3 here is that the Department of Water Utility Regulation will enhance regulatory oversight of rural water supply services by establishing a regulatory framework aligned to the operation and maintenance framework, which we already have, developing regulatory tools, providing structured technical support, and issuing an annual compliance report. Looking at reliable and verifiable data, which remains essential for credible performance assessment and effective regulatory oversight, as highlighted in both the reports and the discussions we've had over the 3 days. So undertaking number 5 is that the Water Utility Regulation Department and all the utilities undertake to fully operationalize the Regulation Management Information System, REMIS, to improve access to timely and reliable data. In the face of narrowing the fiscal space and financing for the sector, subsidies will be very unpopular. The reliable source of financing for the utilities operations is through tariff. Cost-reflective tariffs for financial and operational sustainability is very key. Therefore, undertaking number 6 is that the Water Utility Regulation Department and all the utilities undertake to finalize the approval of the revised tariff policy, review and approve the cost-reflective tariff in line with the affordability and willingness to pay across the different regions. In response to sustainability and climate resilience, water use efficiency and demand management is very critical. Therefore, undertaking number 7 is that water utility regulation and all the utilities undertake to engage stakeholders to promote water use efficiency and enhance coordination with the different partners. And in response to the need to regulate inclusive sanitation service provision, strengthening compliance to standards, and cost of service and infrastructure management will require deliberate effort. Therefore, our undertaking here, number 8, is that WARD and all the utilities undertake is to strengthen regulatory compliance to sanitation service provision as we move towards into sanitation regulation. Members, we never know the worth of water till the well is dry. That was by Thomas Fuller. I thank you for listening to me, and I hope those undertakings are very inclusive. And we are not being ambitious here, but we think we can get there. Together with you, our partners, and other stakeholders, we will make it. I thank you very much. And also to thank you before I leave the stage for being religiously present from day one. Guest of honor, these people have been here from day one and none of them has left the room. Thank you and thank you very much. Please clap for yourselves. So it's my honor and my privilege at this juncture to invite the Permanent Secretary, Dr. Alfred Okotokedi, who is also representing the State Minister for Water, to come and address us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Engineer Dr. Frank Kweronda. The heads of regulatory bodies from the various regions of Africa, representatives of development partners, departments, agencies, representatives from local government, academia, research institutions, private sector, civil society organizations, the media, ladies and gentlemen. First, I bring apologies from the Minister of State for Water. She's unable to be with us here. And she has engagement that determines her mandate for the next season, and it is understandable. Also, apologies, my voice is not very okay. I think I came back with some Amazon bug that has been terrorizing me for the last 4 days. I'm also sorry I could not join you for the opening because we had an engagement in the #1 office, and yesterday with the Prime Minister, and also partly today because we had also a meeting with the Auditor General as we conclude the mandatory statutory audits. 3 days ago, we convened with a shared sense of urgency. Today, we are literally adjourning with a unified pledge to turn dialogue into actions. You have not just held technical talks, you have forged the blueprint for change. From what I've learned and what we have all learned, the sound in this room has been the sound of transforming WASH. Uganda's regulatory model is now an open book for everyone. It is rich in data and information, performance-driven and transparent performance rating. We publish our 32.4 non-revenue water alongside our 25%, not to assign blame, but to accelerate improvement and challenge us to get to that target. We want to be bold. We have to be commercial alert as utilities and be engaged if we are supposed to meet the demands of our customers. From the deliberations, 3 aspects have come into focus that we need to reflect into. Rural water supply is entering into an era of professionalization. Secondly, tariff must both be cost-reflective and affordable, especially for the very poor. And thirdly, the regulator must continuously strengthen and balance the interests of policymakers, service providers, and consumers, and ensure the momentum and progress towards achieving national development targets around WASH. To our colleagues from the regions, you have seen our model, its challenges and successes. Take what serves you best. And what does not, you leave it with us. This is how we build a stronger Africa together. To our partners, you provided the momentum that drives our progress forward, and we want to thank you. I also want to appreciate the very honest admissions and discussions on operation and maintenance, tariff, and bringing the orphan that was behind the room into the forefront, that is sanitation. We need to use regulation to improve efficiencies of the utilities and also lower the costs of providing the services around WASH. The entire Water Utility Regulation Department, you have done a commendable job in technically convening and directing this annual conference, which is the first of its kind for regulation. And I would like to thank Engineer Frank, together with your team, for the work done. This sector now stands as proof for us in Uganda that good governance delivers. And let us boldly acknowledge in the headlines tomorrow and thereafter that we now target to drop water losses by at least 5%, because that will bring on board 16 billion and many, in terms of shillings, 16 billion and many, many new customers who are not enjoying our services now. Let Kampala become Africa's Center for Water Utility Regulation Excellence. The first small step we have started is what we have to build on. And let's commit to 100% wastewater compliance in the next 18 months. These are not aspirations. These are our concrete commitments that were forged in this room. Of course, this conference is now an annual event. When we convene next year, we will gather not only to deliberate, but to hold ourselves accountable for the delivery we have promised. I would like, as we convene next year, let's have clear evidence of progress, achievements that speak beyond our pledges. To our partners, we can only say thank you, and we are greatly indebted to you. And our sponsors, we appreciate your generosity and your contributions, and may you be blessed with more so that you provide for us also in future. The keynote speakers, we thank you for your active challenging us, but also for sharing your knowledge and experiences. The same applies to the panelists for opening our minds, reminding us, and putting us on the right path. And to you, the participants, for your active participation, we can only say thank you. In a very special way, I want to say thank you to the colleagues who have made it possible for this ministry to continue surviving, and we are glad that you have found time when called upon to come and be with us. These are our retired professionals. And I think, let me ask them to stand up and these are the experts who have given it all to the sector, and they're still continuing to give. And it is a challenge to the rest of us. With profound gratitude for your engagement and renewed resolve for the worker aid, I now officially declare the inaugural Uganda Water Utilities Regulators Conference 2025 closed. And I say this for God and my country. Thank you. You better take another, because I have a call.
Oh, thank you very much, Dr. Okoto Kidi, for that. Would you love to step next time? Okay. Another thunderous round of applause for our permanent secretary for a very wonderful speech full of reassurances and inspiration for us to do more, especially as we prepare, because I believe that is already going on for the next conference, which will be next year. Ladies and gentlemen, the conference is closed, but we have a climax to it, the presentation of awards to persons and utilities or entities that have exhibited excellent performance and inspirational work. I would like to invite right about now Engineer Godfrey Hashakimana to come and help. He will be undertaking the citation for the various awardees, and at the mention of the category, the citation will be read. Would you love to give guidance before we begin this particular process?
Thank you very much, Mr. PS and colleagues. In the interest of time, I will request I go directly to the point, but taking it on from what Engineer Ayat mentioned, he asked while he was away what could have changed in the ministry. And to the best of my understanding, what I know, I was able to somersault from water for production to regulation, courtesy of the permanent secretary. So I want to thank him in a special way for making it possible for me to cross to umbrellas which I was able actually to participate into gazetting, into public water utilities. Now, what we are going to do, I will request my colleague to mention the award. I'll mention the citation, and then also I'll be able to request specific officers to come and be able to help us give out the awards. As the water utility regulation, we found it very important to recognize our utilities we have all witnessed our performance, and for us to be able to work harder, we found it being a motivational way of ensuring that we work harder and achieve better in the coming financial year. So, the first award.
Ladies and gentlemen, the very first award is for business planning and governance.
We are giving this award to a utility purposely for its exemplary strategic financial management and also execution, effectively implementing its capital expenditure budget and sustaining a robust operational cost coverage ratio that ensures long-term viability. This is to award the utility management for aligning its operations with strategic goals, stakeholder engagement, and upholding the highest standard of corporate governance within the sector.
And ladies and gentlemen, the award for business planning and governance goes to National Water and Sewerage Corporation.
On that note, I would like to request our dear Permanent Secretary to help us award National Water for its great
Congratulations, National Water and Sewage Corporation, upon the Business Planning and Governance Award. The good work is visible. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our next award is the Most Improved Utility.
This utility is being awarded for achieving the most significant performance improvement over 5 years, which is demonstrated by their strategic reforms in operational efficiency, which has trickled down to improved living conditions and service coverage. This is to award the team for teamwork and continued effort at improvement of water and sanitation services.
Ladies and gentlemen, the award for Most Improved Utility goes to Central Umbrella Water and Sanitation.
On this note, I want to request the chairperson, Esawas, to help us give out this award.
Congratulations, Central, for the extraordinary work that has been undertaken and for receipt of this award. The team from Central, please make your way. Congratulations. As the team take their seat, the next award is for customer service and engagement.
We are awarding this utility for its outstanding commitment to understanding and valuing customer needs, timely service delivery, and fostering trust through transparent and proactive communication. This is to award organizational responsiveness and professionalism in service delivery.
The award for customer service and engagement goes to Eastern UWS.
I want to request still the chairperson, Esawas, to help us give out this award.
Congratulations, the team from Eastern.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we proceed, I want to clarify that much as we are awarding you for these particular performances, it doesn't mean you did not perform well in other areas. But the team which was nominated to evaluate the performance was able to pull out exactly what you did very well, better than others. So in other areas, most of us did well, but this is the particular area where you performed better than others.
All right, thank you very much. Our next award is Innovation and Digital Transformation.
We are awarding this utility for leading the way in introducing digital asset management, greatly improving data handling and enabling smarter, data-driven decision-making in Southwestern. I have leaked the information. Southwestern, this is to award for commitment to continuous improvement and embracement of transformative ideas that have greatly impacted excellence within the sector.
Ladies and gentlemen, allow me emphasize that Southwestern, UWACE is the winner for this award.
I want to request still the chairperson, Esawas, to come and give out the award.
Congratulations. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, the next award this evening is Metering and Meter Management.
We are giving out this award to the utility for its commendable efforts in mastering all their elements of integrity across a geographically dispersed network, achieving and maintaining high system input metering coverage, which underpins accurate water accountability and billing. This is to award the utility for its deliberate efforts geared towards operational efficiency and customer satisfaction.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Midwestern Umbrella of Water and Sanitation.
On this note, I want to request the Acting Commissioner, Water Utility Regulation Department, to help us give out the award.
Oh, Mzee Habibu. Congratulations for the tremendous effort being undertaken and for the enormous work that you are putting into improving water services. Okay. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, our next award is the Livelihood Impact Award.
We are giving out this award to the utility for directly improving the livelihoods of fishing communities in Buikwe. I think you have understood where I'm heading. Efficiently managing 24-minute piped water supply systems and ensuring all connections are active and rural households in Buikwe district receive reliable clean water. This is to award dedicated effort towards improvement of livelihoods, promoting health and overall community development.
Ladies and gentlemen, any mention of the awardee other than Buikwe DLG would be a disaster.
And I want to request the representative from GIZ to come and help us to give out the award.
Congratulations, ladies and gentlemen, as you make your way to the front to receive that award.
We are consulting so that we don't make a mistake again. We have another award.
That is Livelihood Impact Award.
We are giving it for transformative impact on different communities, providing 24-hour continuous water supply. We are giving this award to the utility for its dedicated efforts and strong commitment to social and economic empowerment, which has positively impacted the lives of communities.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Kalangala Infrastructure Services Limited.
I think this one I've done well not to leak the information. So I want to request Country Director, Water for People, to come and help us give out the award.
The Country Director, Water for People, please. Thank you. Thank you very much. Our next award is the Humanitarian Service Award.
We are giving out this award for dedicated humanitarian service in providing critical water supply to different districts, navigating operational complexities of serving vulnerable people, and ensuring access to water and sanitation services. This award is in recognition of its purposeful service and outstanding devotion to uplifting humanity.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Humanitarian Service Award goes to Northern Umbrella of Water and Sanitation.
I want to request the Country Director, IRC, to help us give out the award.
Northern Umbrella of Water and Sanitation, receiving the Humanitarian Award from the good Ms. Jen. Thank you very much and congratulations for the good work.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are almost done. Let us be patient a bit. We have very few remaining and we'll be done with the activity.
All right, let's quickly run through. The Innovation and Revenue Collection and Management Award is next.
We are awarding this utility for implementing innovative and adaptive revenue collection mechanisms in challenging low-density operating environment, demonstrating resilience and commitment to financial sustainability. This is an award to recognize for the utility for transparent processes, fostering accountability, and promoting a culture of efficiency and innovation within the sector.
Ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Karamoja, Umbrella of Water and Sanitation.
I want to request the representative from WhatsApp Advisory, WSUP, to come and help us give out the award.
Thank you very much, Karamoja, Umbrella of Water and Sanitation, for the extraordinary work and interventions that you are making. This is where the gentleman spoke about a young man who was innovative with an app. Thank you, thank you. Congratulations. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we are going to up the tempo a little bit for the next award. The next is for Distinguished Service.
The next awards are going to be given by our dear Permanent Secretary, so that we save on the time. And this award is being given in recognition of a distinguished career and visionary leadership as a commissioner. This one I have to be specific. Commissioner of Water Utility Regulation Department. His steadfast commitment established the foundations of performance-based regulation, championed utility accountability, and elevated national standards for water service delivery, leaving an enduring legacy on Uganda's water sector.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm especially proud to announce this particular award goes to my namesake, Engineer Christopher Tumusime. There we are. Gangos. All right. Congratulations, Engineer Tumusime. Thank you. Honorable Permanent Secretary, I'll request that you stay right there so that we can get done with the rest.
And ladies and gentlemen, we are not only recognizing them as former commissioners, but these are commissioners who served not only as bosses, but as also parents to the staff they supervised. Reason we want them to keep around with us, continuing to give us guidance, which has enabled us to reach where we are today.
A big round of applause. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a second Distinguished Service Award.
We are recognizing the Commissioner in recognition of exemplary leadership and dedication as the Commissioner of the Rural Water Supply and Sanitation Department. His tireless efforts were pivotal in expanding access to safe water and sanitation for millions in rural communities, advancing for the national framework for sustainable service delivery, and leaving a profound impact on public health and livelihoods across Uganda.
Ladies and gentlemen, Engineer Eyatu Joseph Oriono. Congratulations. Our next award is Appreciation Award. All right, ladies and gentlemen, Appreciation Award.
We are appreciating, this Appreciation Award is presented to Honorable Beatrice Anywa, a team, Minister of State for Environment, holding the portfolio for the Minister of Water and Environment. We extend our sincere gratitude for her support and for honoring us as the chief guest at the Annual Utilities Regional Conference 2025. Her presence reaffirms the ministry's commitment to effective sector regulation and inspires continued collaboration among all stakeholders.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is well affirmed, the Honorable
Yeah,
Minister's Award.
I want to request the acting commissioner to come and receive it for the Honorable Minister.
Please. Dr. Frank Kweronda receiving that award on behalf of the Honorable Minister. Ladies and gentlemen, Appreciation Award 2.
This is Appreciation Award presented to Honorable Aisha Sekindi, Minister of State for Water. We recognize her committed leadership and unwavering support to the water sector. Her dedication has strengthened service delivery, advanced key reforms, and encouraged continuous improvement in the provision of safe and reliable water services across the country. I want to request still Acting Commissioner to receive.
Yes, the blessings are beginning to pour in. Ladies and gentlemen, we beg your indulgence, Permanent Secretary, Appreciation Award 3.
We are appreciating, this appreciation award is presented to the conference organizing committee. We acknowledge and celebrate the team's exceptional dedication, professionalism, and tireless effort in planning and delivering the annual Utilities Regulators Work Conference 2025. Their commitment has ensured successful and impactful gathering for all the stakeholders.
Ladies and gentlemen, led by Dr. Engineer Frank Koronda, let all members of the organizing committee make their way to the front to receive this award. The extraordinary work that was put in behind the scenes for preparation of the inaugural Uganda Utilities and Regulators Conference 2025. Hey, there we are. Please make your way. Each one of you that was part of the organizing committee and you're here with us, we appreciate your enormous work and efforts that went into putting this together. Asante sana. Hey, my citation man was also part of that. All right. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, our very last appreciation award.
We are appreciating our dear permanent secretary. The appreciation award is presented to Dr. Alfred Okoti Okidi, Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Water and Environment. We recognize and deeply appreciate his outstanding leadership, his firm commitment to strengthening water utility regulation, and his continued support in advancing accountability and performance across the sector. His guidance has played a central role in steering the ministry towards better service delivery for all Ugandans.
Congratulations, Permanent Secretary.
I want to request the chairperson, Esawas, to come and help us. Give us.
Thank you very much. Congratulations, Dr. Alfred Okidi Okot.
Ladies and gentlemen, on my side, I'm done. I want to thank you very much for being very, very active and for supporting the regulatory function, our utilities. If you historically you see where we came from and where we are today, it's a very, very great achievement. And I see us advancing further and achieving the best with time ahead. I thank you very much. I hand over back to the MC.
Thank you very much, Engineer Godfrey Ashakmana, for that citation and effectively marshalling that process. A big round of applause to the good engineer for the job well done. Ladies and gentlemen, that's about it. I just have two very last rituals that we are going to undertake. A photo op that will involve the Permanent Secretary, the Chairman Organizing Committee, Chairman Isawas, and other stakeholders, including our sponsors, key members of the Organizing Committee, and then another phase will involve each one of us that wants to be part of this very iconic moment. Okay, as that is going to be undertaken, ladies and gentlemen, let's rise for the singing and rendition of the national anthem, as well as the anthem of the East African community. Let's begin with the East African community.
Mungu twaomba uilinde Jumuiya Afrika Mashariki, tuwezeshe kuishi kwa amani, tutimize na malengo yetu. Jumuiya yetu sote tuilinde, tuajibike, tuimarike. Umoja wetu ni nguzo yetu, idumu jumuiya yetu.
right, thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Photographers, I would love that you move a little bit closer and take over this particular session where we shall have at least 3 phases of photo opportunities. The very first one, the permanent secretary, will be joined by members on the very first row, including our sponsors. We are ready to, okay. Our members of the organizing committee, I won't give you an Oliver Twist. Stay where you are. Let the members on the first row, including our dear sponsors and partners, come forth for the very first photo opportunity. Great. As that is happening, ladies and gentlemen, all right. Commissioners and assistant commissioners, get ready. Commissioners and assistant commissioners, you will also have an opportunity to get ready. There we are. Great. As that is happening, ladies and gentlemen, allow me say thank you to the